one walk away with this is like I could just ask people for their portrait, and I think it was like maybe one or two people the whole day said no. Welcome to the latest episode of Street Badass 10. And we're going to switch things around a little bit today. I've got Danny here with me once again. And instead of Danny going through his 10, Danny's going to go through my 10 with me. So I've chosen 10 of my favorite photos that I've taken, and Danny's going to help me go through those, aren't you, Danny?
It's only right. It's only right that you should do it. So let's go. I'm looking forward to
It's
this.
only right. Okay, so let me tell you like the mind or the process, I should say. I'm going to go through the process of what I thought. I thought about the 10, and obviously, I think in your case, you had when we talked about your 10, you had way more than 10 that you really like. So it's very difficult to pare it down to 10. So I thought what I'd do with my 10 is these are all shots that I feel I really like. I don't know that they're technically great, but I think that these shots kind of give a story or show the path to where I am today and what I'm doing today. And I shoot a lot of portraits, a lot of street portraits, a lot of flash, and I just wanted to kind of go along that journey today. So let me go ahead and open up number one here, Danny.
Let's go.
So this is the first shot that I've ever done. This I'll give you the date of this. This was approximately 1986. This was in Copenhagen. I was in Copenhagen. I had my Minolta film camera. Obviously, it's way before digital was even a thing. And I always liked taking pictures. I think I was probably 19 or so at this time, maybe pushing 20, something like that. And I was out taking pictures in Copenhagen. And I saw this guy, and he was standing in front of Burger King shouting. And I wanted to take this guy's picture. So I walked up and took his picture. And I remember the feelings that I got when I took it. I'd imagine, when you get a shot that kind of like a street shot, you get that kind of street feeling. Is that the case for
Yeah, a
you
little
too,
buzz,
Danny?
don't you? You get a buzz from it.
Yeah, I remember thinking to myself because this is a manual focus. This is a 50 millimeter. I didn't have any kind of fancy lenses or anything because I was 19, 18 years old and broke. But I got this shot, and I remember putting it up to my eye, focusing, getting it, and then putting it down. It's like, wow, that was kind of exciting because this guy's looking at me. There's the guy looking at him in front of me. There's a guy kind of looking at me taking the picture and all of that. And then everybody that was with me was like, "What are you doing? Why are you taking that guy's picture? Don't, that's so disrespectful." And then I was like, "Oh," and I didn't expect that. I just, because I just thought it was kind of like taking pictures.
It's crazy that in the 80s as well. You sort of think to yourself, you've taken this shot and you want to take this shot, but street photography wasn't as well known. Not only that, it wasn't. What was you going to do with the picture back then? It was more like now we all know what we're going to do with the pictures. We're going to stick them on Instagram, or we're going to stick them somewhere. But
Right.
back then, it was you obviously had a calling for it because you saw it and you wanted to take that picture, even though you
Well,
didn't really know what you'd do with the picture.
full disclosure, Danny. I appreciate the sentiment there, but I had no idea what street photography was in '86 or
Yeah,
'85 when this was taken. It just for me, it just seemed like a cool scene because this guy was being loud, and I was always taking pictures of like my friends. We were kind of punk rockers back then. Pictures with like cigarettes stuck up our noses. We were doing a lot of pictures like that. Pictures with us standing on TVs and holding TVs. Doing this kind of stuff. So it was kind of in that line. I didn't know anything about street photography, but that was the first one. It didn't
really
happen
interesting to
much
see.
after that.
It's not one I've seen before, so interesting to see this.
All right. Thanks very much. We'll move on to the next one here. So this was taken in Buenos Aires, and this was the first shot or the first series of shots, I should say, because I was down in Buenos Aires. I believe this was 2017, maybe 2018, and I went down to Buenos Aires to um, to do some shooting, and I met up with a friend of mine, Andres Heredia, and he had a GR2. I had a GR2, and I proposed that we do some kind of project. And the project basically went like this: I would shoot with flash, and I had a Godox flash I put up on top. I did it manually. Didn't really know what I was doing, but I just kind of figured it out as we went and went for it. And then he would shoot the same portrait or a similar portrait of the same person without flash, and that was the project. So we went around Buenos Aires. This was the neighborhood of San Telmo, and took all these pictures. And I really liked how they turned out. And one walkaway with this is like I could just ask people for their portrait, and I think it was like maybe one or two people the whole day said no. And
Yeah,
so it kind of opened my eyes to that.
because when you first start asking people, you sort of automatically think they're going to say no. So it shows that you've got the approach. You know, you've got the approach right from the start. You had the approach right. You know.
And so I think that the one way to look at it is there's a sure way to get no, and that's by not asking. That's always going to be a no. But if you ask them, you got a camera hanging around your neck or in your hand or whatever. If you ask them, all they can say is no. That's the absolute worst thing that's going to happen. And I
Yeah.
kind of learned that. And the one thing that really helped me was we asked people over and over and over all day long. And I was really nervous to ask this lady to take her picture, to be honest with you. I was like, oh shit, because I was asking in Spanish. Um, and later on, we actually made video of this. I'll never show the video because it's so embarrassing. Andres let me say the word in Spanish for portrait incorrectly the entire day, and he speaks Spanish fluently. He's from Colombia, and I said it's retrato. I'm not going to try to say it with Spanish style. Retrato is the way that you say portrait in Spanish. I was asking everybody if I could take their portrato.
But that is how you speak Spanish, isn't it? You just put an O on the end of everything.
Well,
Is that right?
apparently that's what I was going with. The funny thing is, not Andres didn't say anything. Nobody in Buenos Aires said anything to me. They're all like, "Oh yeah, no problem." Like they were just going with it, and you
Maybe
would
they just
never.
realised there was a mix of English and Spanish there. They understood what you meant.
They're just so like mellow. They're not going to correct you when you say something wrong in Spanish. It's completely the opposite in France. I'll be honest with you. If you say
Well,
something in France, they're like, whoa, 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 no, 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 no.
as
Then
the
they'll
picture
correct you
goes,
or
you know,
anything.
it's a great shot. She's right dead center. She's staring straight through the camera. She's not smiling, which is a good one as well. It's as it's one of your early portraits. It's great, and I'd
Thanks,
never
man.
seen this one before either. So this is a treat.
It was a lot of fun to shoot it, and we've got a lot of different portraits that we did that day. I'll find that hashtag and put that up some point. But it was the first time I did a series and a project, and it
Yeah.
was a lot of fun. So let's get out of Buenos Aires here, and we'll go to the next one. So this is in Tokyo. Um, After I went to Buenos Aires, I decided maybe I'll go to London. And so I went and I looked in my points I had because I traveled a lot for work at that time. I looked to see if I had points available to go to London, and they were going to charge me something like $250 for taxes or some or fees. But I could pay for my flight to go to London. I was like, wow, that doesn't sound like a points flight. Anyway, long story short, um, Flick told me just check like Japan or something. I was like, oh yeah, check. Who knows? So I looked up Japan, and it came out that I could fly to Japan for free, and then pay like $25 in tax.
Brilliant.
And I looked at her, and I'm like, it says here that I can fly to Tokyo for like $25 tax. What do you think? She said, all right, go ahead and do it. So I had bought a Mamiya twin lens reflector camera, and the camera was made the year I was born in 1965. So I had this
Oh
big,
wow.
Yeah, it was new in box. That was the funny thing about it, is this guy bought it, maybe took 5, 6 pictures with it, put it back in the box. And so I've got it's in the box, everything, all the original paperwork, and I got it for like 90 bucks off this guy. And so I was walking around Tokyo with this, big twin lens reflector hanging around my neck. And I got to be honest with you, there are a lot of looks of envy.
Well, they
Everybody,
love a camera in Japan. That's
those
right.
guys are completely with you, man. When you're like walking around with cameras, those guys are just with you. They're like,
So
yeah.
what do you think we're seeing here? Do you think we're seeing like a bit of laughter that you're taking the picture, or is that a bit of envy in his eyes that he wants that camera?
Well, I'll tell you exactly where it is. Without taking you around the barn too much, Japan has like the most amazing 7-Elevens. Do you guys have 7-Elevens in the UK?
Yeah, not
You know,
anymore.
I mean, it's like a convenience
Yeah.
store, right? The 7-Elevens in Japan are like completely off the charts, man. They've got like the best food. They've got like everything going on there. They're clean and like so I would just go and buy food in 7-Eleven. It's not like 7-Eleven States or like in England where you get like a nasty hot dog and and it's buck
Yeah.
50. Now they had like just literally everything. Like really good food. It's a whole different it's the same name, different deal. So these guys are hanging out outside of 7-Eleven having a smoke because that's a smoking area there. And I walked up and they were like looking at my camera and they were kind of laughing at it. And this I have flash on here. I had a little flash that was, made for a film camera. And I asked them if I could take their picture and it had backlight. And that's I think the only reason why you can see their face. But I just, I kind of pointed, take picture, and they didn't even need to hear it in English. They're like, or in Japanese, they're like, okay, okay, take picture. And so they were kind of cracking up about it, but it was a fun shot to take.
There's a few things I like about it. I love the background. I love all the different shapes, all the different rectangles going on there, and then you've got your little is it pentagon mark at the top there from your camera. I also like the smoke the that's coming out of his cigarette is almost like a shape as well, which is unusual.
It's a weird film effect because
Yeah.
that's a medium format camera. So it's a weird kind of medium format, kind of grain and everything. I took a lot of pictures with that camera. I had that on the Metro. I had that everywhere. I had a lot of fun with that camera. But that one is I usually go out there like once a day and take a picture in that area because there'd always be people hanging there.
Yeah.
And people, by and large in Japan were completely down with you taking their picture. So I took a shitload there.
Yeah, this is a great shot. I love this.
Thank you very much, Danny. This is in New York City. A few years back, some years now, there was a polar vortex that went through, and I was stuck in Portland, Maine. I was on a plane all day long on the runway.
Oh Jesus.
Right. And they're like, "Oh, just wait a second." And they took us off the plane and then put us back on, et cetera, et cetera. So I called up the travel agency. I said, "Look, just get me in New York City." I said, and we'll call it good. And so they got me on a plane to New York. I got off, and this was right outside of the hotel I was staying in, and there it just started killing. This storm was coming in like this, and this was with um, the Ricoh GR2, and I just stood out there and started shooting. Everybody walked by got shot. I must have taken like 50, 60 different portraits that day. And this is kind of indicative of New York City where nobody gives a shit. And one of the reasons why I like this picture is because I actually had that same tie on that this guy has on here. So I'll just let you know this guy's not that fancy because he got his tie at J.C. Penney. That's where I got mine.
It's the joy of the photograph is that it's a nice portrait in itself. I'm guessing you flashed this,
Yes.
and then but the background's almost as if he's been planted in this background. There's so much going on in the back. It really brings him forward and works as a photograph. Like the whole thing really works.
Well, I think to get to this point, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Danny. Um, I shot a lot of flash and a lot of portraits, and I was really bad at it. Both. I was really bad at shooting portraits, and I was really bad at shooting flash. And I thought about what Arnold Schwarzenegger said one time. And even if you don't like an individual, sometimes individuals can say things that ring true. And he was describing his workout technique. And his workout technique involved finding your weakest point. And his weakest point was his calf muscles. And so he decided to focus in on his calf muscles. And by doing that, that ended up being one of his strongest points, or maybe even his strongest point by doing that. So work on the weak and try to make it one of your stronger points. So I kind of thought about it in that way. So I dug into the idea of shooting with flash and the idea of doing portraits because I failed just miserably so many thousands of times. I mean, thousands of times. It took so many just awful pictures. And I kind of just dug my way up there. So that's where I was in shooting portraits at that time in New York. And I was cold that day, Danny. I can't even explain to you how cold I was. It was so
It looks
cold.
cold. It looks like he should do his coat up. That's what I'm thinking. Do your coat up. Look at it. Look at the weather.
It was a nutty storm because it like 10 minutes before there was no snowing. It was nothing was going on. All of a sudden it just came.
Oh, okay. That makes more.
And and
Yeah.
I was hanging out right outside of the hotel getting ready to go and it was they had that thing over, in New York they have all the construction.
Yeah.
And so they had like I had a break and so I was standing I wasn't getting snowed on where I was standing, but he was kind of running towards everybody's trying to get to where I was. So they had to get shot going through me to get to the shelter. And I think that the snow actually helped me because they're just like this guy's like, oh yeah, whatever, I'm just getting out of this kind of rain snow thing. All right, here's the next one. So this is Portland, Oregon, and this is a portrait. I saw this guy walking down the street, and I thought, what? Look at that beard, and I like the fact that he had it's kind of a unique hat on. I don't really know what kind of hat that is. He almost looked to me like a kind of prospector or something. Like he was going mining, something like that. Does he look like a miner to you? Gold miner or something?
I would definitely ask to take his picture, no doubt. And it's the way like the fact he's got an arm missing. It's the way he's wore it as well. So he's obviously just bought a normal coat and he's bunched it up, which is interesting as well. I think rather
Well,
than you know,
yeah, I think the funny thing about this, and the reason I put this in there is when I asked him to take his picture, I didn't even notice that his arm was missing. And then as I was kind of setting up the shot, I noticed that his arm was missing. And I was like, oh, I said, your arm's missing, man. He goes, yeah. And I said, well, if it makes any difference, I wanted to take your picture because I thought you had a cool beard. And he just didn't care. So that kind of made me understand that people really don't care, even if they've got some kind of physical problem or whatever.
yeah. I've been reading a book by John Merowitz recently, and he goes over that. He says like his head stick because some of his pictures, he will take pictures of people who are clearly like got something wrong with them. But he said it's wrong to think like that. Everyone's sharing this world, and if anything, it's wrong to keep them out of your photographs. If you're documenting life, then why would you not have those people in your photographs? It's wrong, and it actually made me think a bit differently about homeless people as well. Although that's a different subject, really. But yeah, I'm glad you took his picture because I bet he's glad you took his picture as well. It's a really interesting character.
He
What does it
was,
matter if he's got an
yeah,
arm?
yeah, it was funny because he just, I mean, you can tell like he's kind of happy that I'm taking his picture. So maybe it's actually the opposite. Like when you don't want to take somebody's picture because they have something wrong with them, maybe that kind of sucks. I don't know, but there are a lot of questions there. But after I took this guy's picture, realized that his arm was missing, and that guy didn't care. Then I'm like, you know what? People just don't care. If
Yeah,
they don't want you to take their picture and you ask them, they're going to tell you.
yeah, no, that's right. No,
So
I think it's a great picture. I love it, and I like the way you've started. It seems like you've started. I don't know if you did it intentionally, but you've started maybe getting him in like the sort of X zone where you put him in the middle and the street starts coming away in like a shape like that.
My thought, if I had to do it over again, I probably would have had him just a little bit out from the side.
Yeah,
But this
but
was probably 2019,
yeah.
so
But I've
I didn't
noticed that
start
in your
doing it.
work now, you do that with like you try and get them in, so your eyes are drawn to the middle.
And then, yeah, I mean, there are lots of technically there's a lot of problems I think with this shot, but I think I like this shot because it kind of showed me, well, just go ahead and ask everybody if you haven't, any kind of idea that you want to take their picture. You're better off just asking.
Yeah, that's right.
And so
The worst thing is that you have someone like the voice on your shoulder saying, "Why didn't you ask that person?" That's you
that's
don't
right,
want.
because you have like the devil and then the angel right here, and
Yeah,
and don't let the devil get too much going or not too much of the angel either. So you got to try to figure out what's going on. I think everybody has that when they go out and shoot, right? They've got
yeah.
like the little devil here, little angel here. So I guess you have to kind of figure out like whose
Who's
advice
what?
you're going to take, right?
Yeah.
Or a little mixture of both.
This is one of my favourite shots of yours.
Thank you very much, Danny. This lady here was in Times Square. She's a street performer there. Um, I've spent a lot of time in New York for work. I've walked by this lady up until this point, never took her picture, probably 25 times. And she was always out performing. When she performs, she's very bombastic and shouts and carries on and does everything like that. And is kind of just like looks very, she's a performer. So I saw her this time as I walked through, and she was sitting down having a smoke. And so I just went up to her and started talking to her without trying to get in there and get the picture. And I told her, I said, look, I've walked by here a lot of times and I've seen you and I've always really wanted to take your picture, but I wanted to take your picture when you weren't in character. I wanted to take your picture when you were kind of taking a break, if that's okay. And she was like, "Yeah, okay, great." So she just, she wasn't really in character, maybe a little bit in character. I don't know. But I got like maybe 5 or 6 shots off, and then she kind of like went back into character and started like standing up and shouting and howling and everything like that. But she told me that I was one of the good ones. So I kind of appreciated that. But I like the way that the flash kind of hit her from the side, and she had a lot of very colorful and interesting makeup on. So
She does, but also it's her eyes that do it for me. The eyes with the massive eyelashes, and okay, she's got overkill on the makeup, but actually she's got like a softness to her face as well, where she's not obviously she's not performing. She's just sort of looking at you. Um, it brings a
very
different
glamorous, right?
joy. Yeah, definitely glamorous,
Very
definitely.
glamorous. Yeah.
But
Um,
also with the makeup the way it is, it's a bit like what's that film? Um, I can't remember. Unfortunately, I can't remember the film.
what? Who was in the film?
Uh,
What was the
it's
film about?
it's um, it's like the woman's got a crazy. This with her, is it a sister? And her sister's crazy. It's an
She
old
got
like
crazy.
classic. I can't remember the name of it.
Cinderella.
No, I will get it. I will think of it.
If you remember, we can cut this out, Danny, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Um, Crazy Sister. I mean, there's lots of kind of crazy stories. I'll tell you one thing that I do like about this picture is that if you look at her outfit is pretty involved. Like she's got the thing around her neck, the stuff in her hair. She's got that, like, I mean, I don't even know what's going on with her hair. I think her hair was like all like dreadlocks. Hey, so Danny, what was the movie that you thought this one sounded like, or what that looked like?
So the woman is Betty Davis,
Oh, okay,
and
I
the
can see that.
film is Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and it really reminds me of her in that film. So I don't know whether there's any influence there or not. But
Baby Jane
you've
went
got
to New
Betty
York
Davis live.
City. She went to New York City and plays guitar.
Yeah,
But she was a cool lady. So this takes us to Paris, and this was taken about 9 months ago. This is kind of where I'm at with this. This is from the scooter series. I started doing scooters. There are scooters all over the place in Paris, and it's fun to shoot them because I kind of go up to them and say, "Hey, can I take your picture?" They don't want me to take their picture. It's kind of the same thing, but they got nothing. They kind of like wonder what's going on.
yeah,
Like what do you want to take my picture for? This guy saw his picture on my Instagram. It's interesting because I started doing the scooter series, and then I was doing videos of it, and a lot of people in Paris apparently have seen it. And so I've never experienced anything like this before, but um, I was in a restaurant with my daughter, and the waitresses there were kind of pointing at us. And my daughter is a model in Paris. I thought maybe they had seen one of her campaigns or something like that. And I asked them, in French, just what's going on, and they're like, are you that guy that makes those videos and takes pictures of people in Paris? And I was like, oh, I might be,
oh,
because I didn't know
oui.
like if I was in trouble or whatever. Um, but it's happened a few times now where I was in the supermarket and a couple of guys working in the supermarket. They're like, "You're that guy. You're that guy." And so it's the scooter pictures in the end that people recognize. But I've done a lot of these, and this actually got me in the Avenue magazine
Yeah,
because they like the scooter series. So I've got a bunch of them in the Avenue magazine. Thank you very much for that, Juan. And I have a hell of a lot of fun shooting them. So this guy, when I get back to Paris after I get back from New York City and Florida, he's going to get a picture because he's an executive chef and he was on his way to work. So
well, again, we were talking about it earlier, but what I like about it is you've got his face literally in the middle, are hit in the middle. So top both sides of the buildings are leading lines, and then the man's arms itself. If you look, there's a cross there, so it comes down through the white building and then down his left arm, and then the other way. It's like a cross. So he's that's what brings your eyes right onto his face, and his expression's great as well.
he looks like such a Frenchman, doesn't he?
Yeah, it does.
He was. I mean, they all seem to be in pretty good sports about it. Here we go. So here's an interesting guy that I took. These are all basically the scooter and this guy were taken in the plastic cliche, which I've been told by my friend Laurent that I'm the white wolf of plastic cliche. Said everybody knows me there in plastic cliche because I'm always there, and that's I think how everybody finds me because I always tag plastic cliche. So these older gentlemen in France, they're very very happy to have their portraits taken because there's a lot of these guys and this age range I really like these guys because they're kind of at that stage where they don't give a shit. You
Yeah.
take their picture, and it's interesting when you ask somebody what their name is, they always answer with their family name.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Their surname.
right, the surname. So and then when they tell you, then it kind of threw me the first few old guys I talked to because I'm like, I've never heard that name before. And they're like, well, we're from this region. That's very, very famous name from this region. I was like, oh, okay. I said, then I figured it out later. But it's kind of like military style. What's your name? Jackson. What's your name? Visser. You know, but I like the fact that he tucked his tie in his pants.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It almost makes the photograph. He's got like a Simon Cowell sort of lifted his trousers up as high as they'll go, and I would imagine they're sort of halfway up his belly. But also the fact that he's just thought, yeah, I'm going to tuck that in. I don't want that. He don't care. He's going to tuck his tie into his trousers. He's quite happy with that.
Yeah, there's a certain freedom at that age.
Yeah, that's it.
I, I'm waiting. We aren't there yet, Danny. I think I'm a little closer than you, but I think once you get to this age, it's kind of cool because I'm just going to pop that tie in the pants,
Just stick everything down there. Stick your wallet
right?
down the pants. Anything you want, really.
And yeah, I mean, he was great, and he was completely into getting his picture taken too. So
That's a really good picture. I really like it.
thank you very much. Here's a guy I think again is um, in that kind of I don't give a shit age
Yeah,
range.
yeah.
Kind of like yeah, whatever. Um, this was on um, Rue Montaguy. I was going to my metro stop to get on the metro to go back up to Wagram. And this guy walked across the street and I saw him smoking that cigarette. And I said to him, I said, "Hey," I said, "I want to take a picture of you with that smoke." And he was like, I said, "Just like that." And as I said, as they said that, he like breathed out the smoke and I took a shot. But, and then he was like, and then walked off. He just didn't care. But I think a guy, he's got some kind of helmet on too, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, what is the helmet?
Yeah, they wear those helmets to ride scooters. A lot of
Oh,
scooter
okay.
type people.
Yeah, it's an old-fashioned helmet, isn't it?
Um,
I don't think I've seen one like it over here anyway.
there's an element of Inspector Gadget and a lot of stuff around
Yeah,
here.
there's definitely something there. Maybe
There's
like
like,
what you'd imagine like a policeman in France to be wearing. Maybe I don't know. But I
yeah,
like the
like
fact that he's really got overkill with his hands. So he's got massive hands, like very long fingers, and he's got that really thin, silly little cigar. You know.
it's also kind of lucky. And, I didn't notice this when I was taking this all completely by chance that the striped shirt kind of matches up with the stripes on the street, the
It does,
crossing.
yeah. Actually, it does really well.
And then he's got that white belt.
I wonder if that was black and white, whether that you'd be able to bring that out a little bit more to the surface because I didn't notice that first.
You might be able to.
Yeah,
I like that guy. I thought he was cool. I was very appreciative of him letting me do that picture.
yeah,
So I think that this is my last one here. So this one I took just a few days ago. This was taken in Perpignan, and this late I was standing outside the mobile phone store waiting for Flick to pay the bill, and I said hello to this lady in French, bonjour, and she was like bonjour, and she went on to tell me that nobody in Perpignan says hello anymore. I said, well, I just did. And she says, well, but you don't count because you're not from Perpignan. I said, well, I guess you got me there. Um, I said, well, seeing as we've said hello, can I take your picture if you want? You know, I said, all right, well, I'm going to take your picture. And they had these decorations like with the flowers and dragonflies and all that up on the buildings, kind of going between the buildings. I thought it looked kind of cool. That was kind of by chance, but then it had good clouds too. These are my favorite. If I have to pick a favorite day, a cloudy day like this, partly cloudy with a
yeah.
blue sky, are my absolute favorite because it adds something almost surreal to a picture with the blue against the white clouds.
It's almost
And
like she's you've caught her deep in thought because her eyes are up like that. It's almost like she's almost daydreaming, which really works with those whatever they are, the lights or whatever they are above her, as if it's coming out of her mind, sort of her dreams, flowers and butterflies and stuff like that.
she uh, she was an interesting lady to talk to, but also very very kind. And I found that to be the case in France with most people. If you kind of dig on the whole France thing, um, they're with you. It's kind of like Japan. They're a little bit more cautious than maybe England or the USA. But if they kind of see like you're in, like I love being in France. It's a great place. People are really interesting. I really like the kind of Inspector Gadget aspect.
Yeah.
to France. I think it's interesting when you go to the first supermarket that you go to and you see people there working in the supermarket on rollerblades. You know that you're in an interesting place.
Really?
Yes, and they've got like a little. They're on rollerblades and they've got like a little thing on their hand that they touch like to update, and they rollerblade off.
Wow. Never
At
knew
these,
that. That's cool.
it's France, but that's the 10, and we'll end it with this picture that Flick took of me in Buenos Aires. That was after a day of shooting in San Telmo. So I got a beer and sat down.
Yeah, you look happy with your beer. Do you know what? Anytime you've got a picture with paintings in the background, it always makes it interesting. Do you know?
I have to
Yeah.
give uh, I have to give Flick credit to take this picture though. I think she took this with the GR2.
And you're with
So
your two girlfriends there.
yeah, I got my two girlfriends there. Um, this one's got the bottom girlfriend there is I think we're a little more serious than the top girlfriend.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's a 10. Thanks very much for doing that, Danny. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
We
no, it's
went
been really interesting going through.
we did a little bit longer than the other ones, so we're gonna have to do a little bit of editing, I
Yeah, a bit
think.
of editing. But the thing that's interesting is everyone's got, a little story with their shots, but also it's interesting the way you've decided to do it. So everyone's obviously decided to do it a different way, but you've decided to sort of go through your work slowly, like how you progressed. Whereas I just think I just tended to try and sort of show a bit of variety, and I think the others I've watched have also like done different things. So we've all sort of taken different ideas from the 10.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing about it. Let me go ahead and shut us down here, Danny. Thank you very much, Danny. Appreciate that, buddy.
No problem.